This is a story called The Time Game, Part 1, by Accomplished Oil 611, under the subreddit HFY. My name is Tim Jasper, and I'm about to have a story for the ages. A story no one will believe. That is, if I choose the path, if I survive, if I even remember. That's a lot of ifs. I've got a lot to think about before I make that choice. Why me? That's probably the first question anyone asks. Why now? Why here? I think I've got that part covered. I'm in the middle of Las Cruces, New Mexico, and it's mid-afternoon. I would have been in my hotel room, drinking alone. However, when I got there and tried to check in, the clerk told me my room wasn't ready. So I just started driving. I took a turn off the highway. I didn't plan on it, but inspiration struck. After all, a little country detour might be more fun than watching the latest string of terrible movies at the local cinema. Rather than driving across the bridge and into town, I turned towards the picturesque mountains. The scenery was great, and within about 10 minutes I found myself at my inevitable destination. The road ended at Organ Mountain's Desert Peaks National Monument. There was a rather large visitor center, with a knowledgeable park ranger working as an attendant. Without much prodding, he described the topography of the region. Showing off his sculpted 3D map, he pointed out how half the mountain range had been tectonic, while the other half was magmatic. Then after his speech, he pointed me to a quick and easy hike up Dripping Springs. It was only a mile or so. I had time to kill, and had promised my wife that I'd do a little exercise while on my trip. So I hiked. The hike wasn't hard. It simply required walking a gravel pathway. There was no one around, but why would there be? It was the middle of the day. Too bad, I remember thinking. So much nature was present. There were small birds everywhere and a few deer that appeared calm, if not a bit intimidating. I even saw a roadrunner seemingly shoot out of nowhere. Perhaps it was the lack of people that had brought them out. As promised by the park attendant, I came up upon 3 very old buildings making up what remained of Van Patten's mountain camp. The buildings were made of wood, but they were old. They'd been here since before the last Native American tribe had invaded the nearby town, and only remained standing because Patten had the sensibility to marry into the Apache tribe. Surrounding the buildings was a small stone wall, like the kind I used to find all over Massachusetts. In the middle of the camp was a stone structure that might have been used as an outdoor fireplace, or perhaps a water trough for animals and horses that traversed the path long ago. I didn't know. What I did know was that looking down into the structure, I didn't see the rocky base I expected. Instead, I saw some kind of portal. The portal looked kind of like one of those funhouse mirror tricks. You know, where you walk over a bottomless pit and all you see below you is an endless void. Really, the only difference here was that this wasn't a funhouse, and it didn't appear to be a trick. Here's the thing. I knew what it was the moment I saw it. I'm sure I wasn't supposed to know, but I did all the same. My grandfather had told me about it. He liked to tell many wild stories in his old age, but the best ones, they always started with the same, with an infinite doorway. I'm not so blind as to think this was common knowledge. I'd always been proud of my granddad. His life had started during the Great Depression, and he liked to say that it only went downhill from there. In truth, he'd actually done fairly well for a man of his upbringing. He wasn't educated, but he worked hard, and in his later years, he found himself working at the finest yacht club in town. And it's a big town. He never used to say his job was glamorous. After all, he was only a bartender. Instead, he'd say his job was interesting. It had the pulse of the city, and if you listen, there's always a story being told. The police chief would occasionally show up and argue with the mayor about the underbelly city politics. Mobsters would come by and do backroom business deals with corporate officials. Guys would bring their wives and the next day show up with their girlfriends. But his weirdest stories, the truly absurd ones, always started with a rich eccentric billionaire talking about a black doorway. Take Walton. Yes, Sam Walton. He would come into the parlor all the time, usually pretty late. The first time he came in and sat by the bar, by his 4th drink, he and my granddad were on a first-name basis. Sam and my granddad got along pretty good, but that's just how granddad was, easy to talk to. So one day around 1992, Sam leaned in and told granddad this ridiculous tale about being absolutely destitute. I don't know, Sam, my granddad would say. That must have been a pretty long time ago. But the man insisted it was true, and it was bad. So bad that Sam had decided to take his life. Of course, that's when the black door appeared. He had nothing to lose, so he jumped in. He played a game, except it wasn't a game. It was more like a competition, the kind where you die. But he didn't die, and he somehow came out as Sam Walton, the billionaire. My granddad didn't get it, but Sam persisted. Sam said it was like time around him had warped, and everything changed, just for him. He said he was living in the same skin, but he had stepped into someone else's life in what appeared to be a completely different universe, where he had absurd riches he never deserved. Of course, my granddad's no fool. He could almost have been convinced by the way Sam told the story, but he knew a tall tale when he heard one. But then, a short time later, something peculiar happened. He heard it again. Albert Reichman used to come down from Canada every winter to summer in the warmth of the city. Of course, he knew where to get a good drink. Everyone did. My granddad served the best Manhattans in the state. So he often visited. After some time, he and my granddad became friends. Albert liked to know what was going on, and my granddad did like to talk. So after Sam died, my dad brought it up. It was ridiculous, right? Wrong. Reichman went white in the face. We're talking ghost of a polar bear white. Then he gets really close to my granddad and starts telling his tale. My granddad said it was like he'd been dying to tell it for years. Same scenario. He was poor, the door appeared, the contest concluded, the prize was won. After that, Granddad wasn't so sure the tale was entirely preposterous. As he kept working, he got to know other wealthy individuals. Eventually, he'd ask them about it. Some thought he was nuts, but some didn't, and they all said the same thing, that they had feared no one would ever believe them. Each story started the same, as I said, with a door. However, what was behind that door was always different. Some people said they couldn't remember. Others just gave that 1,000-yard stare, the kind that war heroes experience after their world blows up. Occasionally, there was a tidbit of detail. Similarities emerged. They'd say, it requires a choice. It's a race. It's the past. You're all alone. And all of them said, I should have died. Only once did Granddad get a better accounting. However, to get it, he traded drinks all night. Afterwards, he couldn't remember the fine details. He said there was something about waypoints and a disaster, perhaps even monsters. None of it made sense. Today, I'm thinking it's likely going to make sense. I thought about all the things my granddad said. I didn't feel destitute. After all, I had a wife. I had a job. Of course I hated my job. It's the kind of job that makes you wish for the sweet mercy of death. The kind where your boss sleeps with your wife and you're the last to know. I remembered the last thing my granddad said to me. If you see the door, if it opens itself to you, take it. He could be a bit blunt, but well, he was probably right. So what am I honestly thinking now that I see this door? I'm thinking this thing's going to take me someplace wild, to a time in the past where some crazy shit went sideways. And I'm guessing it all goes down right here, right where tectonics meet magmatics. Yikes. Then again, to hell with it. It might make a good show. We have a new contestant. Okay, so I'm the narrator of my own story here, so let's narrate. The sound was all wrong when I entered the door. It wasn't quiet. Instead, it's like being in a football arena and hearing the roar of many thousands of voices. And yet, it's all dark, except for that creepy announcer's voice. Call me crazy, but I kind of hope I'm about to talk to myself here. Contestant, care to explain? I shouted towards the invisible voice. Welcome to today's Player's Choice competition. Today's contestant once again hails from the planet Earth. The last time we had a winner from this sphere was nearly 10 cycles ago, but their bad luck may be about to change. What? The rules remain the same. We chose the place, he chooses a prize, and you pick the path. In front of the contestant are 5 prize options. At the low end, we have health, then fame, money, power, and finally mind. But player beware, as the prize value increases, the paths available to the audience becomes more plentiful, difficult, and deadly. I'm not too proud to tell you that I was now wildly searching for a panic button. Choose now! The roar of the invisible crowd immediately died down to hushed tones, which reminded me of the quiet at the beginning of a NASCAR wreck. You know that part where everyone just starts holding their breath? As the quiet settled in, 5 symbols appeared in front of me like buttons. I couldn't prolong this. Do I choose health? Nah, who needs it? Fame actually sounds awful to me, and power sounds like too much work. I have no idea what mind is, but my granddad did understand money and told me all about it. Those people that came to his bar were rich, but they definitely weren't happy, and happiness doesn't appear to be on the list. Next best thing might just be to be able to put this, everything, my whole life, all of it, out of my mind. I choose mind! I yelled that part. Then I fist bumped the button to my right. Remember that hushed tone from the supposed crowd? Gone. It was pandemonium. A rare and deadly choice. Let's set the course and see if fortune favors the brave. As the blackness was lifted, I shielded my eyes from the sting of the bright New Mexico sun, then opening them slowly. Holy shit, am I floating? Nope. Apparently I'm flying. Okay, let me tell you what's happening. First, my eyes sting, but that's because flying puts the fear of God into me, and this time I wasn't in the plane. So yeah, I opened my eyes wide. That said, everything's moving, but faster than normal and not in the usual way. The sun is flying across the sky from west to east, backwards in time. Called it. The process appears to be speeding up. The seasons are changing. The wooden shacks around me look like they're getting a facelift as the days flying by turned into years, then decades, and then I noticed the mountains. They were growing. The erosion was reverting as they built back to an insane height. A moment was 1,000 years, and the desert turned green, then brown, then green again. Whole ecosystems were being born and dying in front of me. Everything flooded into a shallow sea, and then re-emerged. There were bright flashes, and finally the sun started to streak in the sky once again. The past seemed to be catching up, and I knew I was about to reach my destination. The jungle was vast below me. I could see the rapid motion below me as the gear appeared to shift down once again. A year of time turned into a month of time, but something felt off. The jungle, which reached halfway up the mountainside, quickly receded. Time continued to slow as the jungle was replaced with rock. Slowly, it seemed, the whole valley turned red. Steam and sulfur began to rise, first slower and then faster. The rocks began to glow and the ground started shaking. Then everything exploded. Not erupted. Exploded. Rock shot up all around me. As I continued to rise, I saw a rock shoot past me and pile above me. I was watching a movie of the world's tallest column getting knocked over by a toddler. Only it was being reformed as the movie played in reverse, and the column just kept getting bigger. It was a natural monolith, perhaps the biggest ever, and it was still growing as mountains of rock piled onto it. It was insane, like Mount Olympus had fallen and was now being rebuilt. The entire mountain range appeared to lift into the sky as it glowed red from heat. I could see rivers of lava pouring up the sides as it rose. I saw hot broken rocks appear from seemingly nowhere and merge to its form. I saw pyroclastic flows pushing themselves up its side. I was only crawling backwards in time now, perhaps real time. Then I saw the toddler that caused the mess. An enormous eruption was blasting into the monolith, pulling it into itself as time flowed backwards. The entire mountain range appeared to settle atop an enormous volcano. It was bubbling with hot rock that was sprinting into caves and cracks of all sizes. The explosiveness gave way to a violent shaking as the mountain range appeared to move. Cracks sealed as others formed, while the entire mountain range began to heave backwards. The violence of the shaking grew as the earth shook and the entire mountain retreated. I was higher now, and I saw the mountain range appear to retreat and reset. It was a plow in reverse. Under the mountain of rock sat the enormous caldera of a volcano. Even then it was erupting, but the eruptions were smaller, and there were many as hot rock pushed itself like a river flowing upstream. The rock poured into the volcano as it sealed up. Around it, through smoke and ash, the jungle came plowing in. It was filled with enormous beasts, the likes of which hadn't been seen in 300 million years. I swallowed dryly as time stopped. So, as far as I can tell, a tectonic shift pushed a mountain range over an active volcano. The volcano blew its lid, and everything went to hell. I thought back to my life. I've seen worse. That was part 1 of The Time Game. by Accomplished Oil 611 under the subreddit HFY. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope to see you again next time.